Okay, so this is part two. So yeah, maybe I'm like, but anyways, um, so those are basically three different soul groups. And then I'm gonna include a third soul group, and then I'm gonna talk about the original soul groups that I talked about again, especially the traditional human. The fourth soul group is even higher than the hippie. Now these are people who are like the channelers. These are the people who are the alien contactees. I'm not one of these. I'm not fourth. I'm not that high. I'm hippie. I'm higher than I'm an older soul than a fundamentalist Christian or a crazy Janjaweed killing militiaman in southern Sedona, but I'm not as high as the spirit channeler. Those guys are the highest, and those guys are the ones who have lived like all their lives recently in other planets, and they come here to be the guys who instill the seed of vision of trying to get to the next level of utopia in the hippie people. And in the traditional humans, I think a lot of the traditional humans are going to, like, have the same future as the hippie wanderer people. They're gonna be able to graduate just fine. The fundamentalist Christians of today, no problem. I think they're going to be able to graduate no problem into the next level of utopia and be reborn on this planet with telepathic thinking, and I'll explain that later on this video. But and also what I think about fundamentalist Christians, but not the fundamentalist Muslims though from the third world countries. Those guys are so like violent and stuff. I think that they're going to be reborn on Earth and live hunter-gatherer society for another few thousand years. But anyways, the fourth group, yeah, those are like the channelers, those are the contactees. And also, those are the people who are like beyond human. I think that there's people on Earth who are living here who are human. They were born in human bodies, but they don't have to subscribe to the commonly held limitations of the human body. Bashar says there's a guy living on Earth who's 1,000 years old. There's another couple people who are more than 300 years old, and then there's a handful who are like 150. I have a friend who he's not like a wacky dude. He's a 60-year-old, Harvard-educated corporate lawyer who has a philosophical radio show where he interviews like Deepak Chopra and Andrew Weil and all these guys. But he went to like northern India. His name's Duncan Campbell. He works on, has a radio show in like Boulder, Colorado. But he came over to our house a few years ago and told us the story where he went to northern India and he met some dude who was like 300 years old in like the mountains in some tiny little village. And he could speak every language in the world fluently because he could just suck it out of the air. And I do believe there's people like that. And I think that they exist in the mountains. If you ever want to meet one, they exist in the mountains of India, high up in the mountains of Tibet, like in a cave somewhere, way back in, say, the jungles of the Amazon, where there's just some like medicine man who like live by themselves off in the edge of some like village, and who the natives are just like go to like do like spiritual healings with or whatever. And in Hawaii, even though Hawaii isn't a traditional isn't a very isolated place. I think they live isolatedly just so that they can just live their life and not have to be polluted, because they are human and they can be polluted. But I think, yeah, they would live in Hawaii because Hawaii is like, and that's what Hawaii is, the heart chakra of the world. That's what Anna Hayes says, is that she met some guys who were like aliens who could like vaporize themselves into a higher dimension and vaporize their bodies back into this dimension, and they're like aliens and they just hang out and they live in Hawaii. So if you went there, and went on a hike, and you see somebody and they have the right energy, maybe they're one of these like superhumans. So that would be like the fourth. But yeah, so as far as like the fundamentalist Christian goes, I think that they're the ones who have been here forever, because they're the ones who are kind of subscribing to, and maybe I'll call this video what I think about fundamentalist Christians. They're the ones who are subscribing to all of the age-old beliefs that we've always had of limitation, where you, and they've signed up, with both hands, where they're totally into the idea of deifying other humans who don't deserve it, who are just humans just like you, like the king. Don't mess with the emperor of Rome. The emperor of Rome is he's like a half god. Don't fuck with, don't make fun of, or listen to all of your heart and do exactly what they say. Like the Pharaoh, because he's half God. He's part God. He's the representative God for human man. That's the technical description of the Catholic Pope, as he's God's representative for man. And so you listen to what he is. He's the authority. And, he's supposed to, even after the reconciliation of the Greek church and the Roman Catholic Church, the Greek Church had to not defer everything to the Pope, but the Pope in Rome, but overall you just defer most things, because you're supposed to. It's all about deferring leadership to somebody who's outside yourself, and then minimalizing your own power and throwing it all over. So that's why all these fundamentalist Christians subscribe to shame. They don't like sex. They don't like the human body. They have to keep their bodies covered up. Hug me sideways because I don't want to get a boner if I hug you front ways. I guess they've got a lot of high testosterone. I could never spring a boner that fast. Don't do any drugs because it's all bad. And, thou shalt not this, thou shalt not that. And they're totally into the control and being not having any power over themselves. And that's the whole reason why Mars had to explode and didn't make it, because they were just following the leader over there and having wars and doing whatever, hitting each other just because they're different. And that's why Maldek had to blow up, because they had the wars and they subscribed to all that stuff, which ultimately causes war when you're more interested in hating somebody else and attacking somebody else just because they disagree with you. They disagree with what you think the status quo should be. They're thinking out of the box, so therefore you're bad because the unknown is bad. Because in natural, you're normal, like first world person or American or second world. If you're unknown, if you're different, then that means you're bad. If you question, like, say anything in the Bible, like how hell is eternal, if you question that, well, then you're not following it right, and therefore you're gonna burn in hell, or you're not paying attention, or you're somehow wrong, and phooey on you, you're a bad guy. But the positive aspect of the fundamentalist Christian group, and I'm gonna throw in the or your traditional human being, or atheist, for that matter. The positive aspect of them is that they're followers, and that they're going to basically believe what everybody around them believes. So once the earth gets to the point where there's enough hippies, and the hippies take over, and the hippies are taking over, where you're supposed to believe in reincarnation, and you're supposed to believe in all parallel universes and time travel, and that the aliens are here, and that we should live at one with the environment, and being original and thinking originally and for yourself, and questioning the Bible and having problems with what says in the Bible, and actually rewriting the Bible because it was rewritten in the first place, to write it what it really is, and using your own intuition and believing in the concept of telepathy and speaking to God yourself without having to have an intermediary do it for you. All those new age hippie concepts are going to be rather easily adopted by even the craziest of the fundamentalist Christians in the first world countries. And the reason I say that is because fundamentalist Christians these days will totally support anything that's politically correct. Where they wouldn't support those same things just a few years ago because it wasn't it wasn't accepted in mainstream enough yet. But then it becomes accepted in mainstream because, like they make movies about it and the movie was popular, so then they accepted it, and basically because they have to accept it. If they don't, then they're going to be the odd man out. And there's the fundamentalist Christian types, the follower types, your average normal American. The last thing that they want to be is the odd man out. So they're going to accept all that stuff. They're going to have to, as soon as a certain amount of hippies exist in the world. And it's not going to have to be that many hippies. It's just a couple more million, man. We're almost there. They're going to believe this stuff. Stuff that they didn't believe before. I mean, it was pretty much okay. It was okay to believe in that slavery was good amongst these people, the follower types. Back in 150 years ago, before 1855, you could be a church-going, God-fearing, Bible-thumping Christian and have a slave and think that slavery's fine back then. And even 50 years ago, you could have been one of those people, been totally accepted in your society and your church going, and think that black people aren't allowed to drink out of the same water fountain as you. Believe in segregation. And then like 20 years ago, you could have been one of those people totally respecting your society and believe that, or even 10 years ago, or even now, in a lot of circles, and believe that homosexuality is an abomination, and if you're a homosexual, something's wrong with you. And but nowadays, you can be one of those crazy fundamentalist Bible-thumping people and, believing in the devil, believing in eternal hell for anybody who's not Christian, and also believe that it's totally fine to be be for the homosexuals and think that, and that's very progressive. They're coming along really quickly. They're going to believe in the legalization of drugs. I'm sure a lot of those guys believe in the legalization of drugs, or they're going to pretty soon. They're not far from it, because whatever's legal and whatever the powers that be have decided it's going to be legal, they just fall in line with. So as soon as the powers that be fall in line with say that all drugs are legal, they're going to be like, oh yeah, of course all drugs should be legal. We've always said that, or oh yeah, that was just the past. That wasn't us, so yes. Don't even think about that. And then and then once the status quo gets up and says that it's okay to walk around naked, or have sex without being married, they're going to jump right in there, and they're going to be fine with that, and they're going to be fine with reincarnation, and those fundamentalist Christian types, a lot of them, I think they're gonna be able to ascend and come in and live here, and because that's the destiny, I think, of a lot of human souls who've lived here, who've lived in they've gone through it. They did the Maldek thing. It blew up. They didn't quite make it. They lived in Mars, didn't blow up, didn't quite make it. They lived on Earth for 250,000 years, and they're gonna make it, and they're gonna be just fine. A lot of them, the ones who are totally have a whole lot of hatred in them and really only want to focus on protecting, Jesus and protecting Muhammad and just trying to embarrass anybody who does otherwise. If they have enough hatred, there's certainly some of those who aren't going to, are going to have to redo and live in a world that is, hunter-gatherer or whatever. Or, now, I think within a lot of these native civilizations that are hunter-gatherer, there are a lot of old souls who are like, this life, I'm going to be a caveman and check it out and be cool. And then so they're born in there and they're like, whoa, this is weird. And then they have like a vision and then they become a teacher for their group. And so yeah, those are the four different soul groups, the four main different soul groups. But then within those soul groups, there's lots of different, I think within hippie soul group, because there's a whole bunch of hippies. There's like probably billions of hippies in the world these days, and the more, and so within those, you could have your own little conversation of all the different kinds of where they come from, but I don't have enough to talk about that. So anyways, I guess this video is what I think about fundamentalist Christian soul group, fundamentalist Christians, or maybe I'll have another video later. Anyways, that's my soul group 2-part video.